But yeah, I'm super excited to talk about what we have ready for you all today. It's going to be a fairly simple concept to go over. Nothing too complex here. Let me go ahead and pull it up, guys. I'm a bit old, so I'm gonna go ahead and get my glasses for this presentation. So just bear with me as I get ready to present what we have here. Like I said, we're going to talk about business transformation today, more specifically business transformation and strategic acquisitions. And to do that, here's our walkthrough that we're going to present. I've been playing this game, Fire Emblem Engage, for about a month and a half now, and I don't know what it was. I was just playing it one day, and it really just came across my mind that, man, this is how scaling a business, or this is a great example for scaling a business. This is how it looks to me in terms of the growth and expansion of the home base within the game Fire Emblem Engage, which we'll talk about. We're going to revive the series Explained by a Gamer, which you're going to see actually here. It premiered on YouTube, but we are going to post it and premiere it right during this presentation. And then the timeline and evolution of a company called Omnissa. Now, if you're not familiar with what Omnissa is, don't fret, don't fear. It's a company that's very dear in my heart, so I'm looking forward to talking about it and the growth of it, and we'll use it as an example to explain how you can scale your business, or at least look at an example of a successful company, and then all of the different hoops and hurdles that they had to jump through and jump over just to get to where they're at today. And then lastly, we're going to compare the two. We're going to compare Fire Emblem Engage and also compare the journey of Omnissa. And then we're going to use those comparisons to really look at how we can transform and scale our businesses. At the end, we're going to have a Q&A. If no one asks any questions in our stream chat, that's perfectly okay. I'm going to ask probably some filler questions towards the end, and then go through some real life examples to gauge some more questions if these two examples don't stick as well as I believe it will, but we shouldn't have any problem there. All right, so Fire Emblem Engage, what is this? I'm not a gamer. I have no idea what you're talking about. What is Fire Emblem Engage? So this is a Japanese RPG, a Japanese role-playing game, or JRPG. And it's extremely fun. It kind of reminds me of chess if you never really played a role-playing game. It reminds me of chess mixed up with Pokemon, or chess mixed up with Final Fantasy. It's more of a strategic game, but at the same time, it still has all of those turn-based elements. Fire Emblem has been around for quite some time, but something in particular about Engage really fascinated me and just made me think of the comparison that I'm going to present to you all today in Explained by a Gamer, which is going to premiere right now. So let's switch over. Let's watch Explained by a Gamer, and then we're going to be able to truly explain the next steps and comparisons for Omnissa. All right, so we're about to head over here. All right, so a lot of us know, or at least have heard, how hard it is to start a business. But what about scaling one? Scaling one can be way more challenging than just starting that business. Obviously, starting a business has its own challenges. Just the entryway, just to get into that point, is extremely difficult for most people. But staying consistent, that's the hardest thing to do. But eventually that consistency will turn into a business that's fruitful. Now, when you start to get a little bit of results, then you want to say, all right, how do I scale this business? How do I not just have this business benefit me, but benefit an entire village, benefit my community, benefit anyone that wants to come work at my business? For example, Pitch Play Co. Let's look at this looking at the game Fire Emblem Engage. Now, Fire Emblem Engage is very, very exciting, very fun, but it does not start off with all of the same benefits that you get as though you're having the end game. And the best way to look at what a business will look like towards the end game after it's become scalable, let's look at the sanctuary in Fire Emblem Engage. So there are plenty of parts in the map at the sanctuary, which is called Somnio. And Somnio has a ton of different benefits at the end as you progress through the game. But in the beginning, you only start off with a few perks. So for the player that started off with Fire Emblem Three Houses, once they moved on to Fire Emblem Engage, for them, it was like, man, this is unfortunate because I had all of these other benefits. Like if you were working at corporate and then you started your own business and had to now realize like, oh man, it was much easier on the other side because I had so many things handed to me, so many resources, so many things that were already built up before I got here, that when you try to build up your own base and your own place, you're missing a lot of different things. Eventually, as you go through the game, you start to unlock places like the cafeteria or the cafe. You start to unlock a fishing area. You start to unlock even mini shops outside of the main shops that you start to unlock after you've already progressed a little bit in the beginning of the game. So you don't start off with all of the shops that you would get eventually. You start to appreciate everything that you're getting in Somnial because you have worked so hard to get those things. That's the same thing that you're going to do when you try to scale a business. Like all businesses, your network is key. Your network is your net worth. So as you're building your network and your net worth with all of the team members or all of the new characters that's going to be in Fire Emblem Engage, the beautiful thing is those characters bring their own special skills and own special network as well, and only making your business grow and be more scalable. It's not always about the investment or the funding. Majority of the time, it's about the network. 90% of your business growth will be because you are utilizing your network. Whether you believe that or not, whether that number is not completely accurate, the mentality about how you build your network is truly, truly key. Not only how you build your network, but also how you utilize it. Just like all of the characters in Fire Emblem Engage are helping the main character grow Somnial. That's the beautiful part about scaling your business. Although it takes time, because you're building it from the ground up, everyone is going to believe in your vision. Everyone's going to believe in your product. And not only that, they will invest and add their own resources because you share a common goal. If you're only looking at your business at the beginning and you can only compare it to what your vision is of the end game, you're not going to appreciate the journey, and a lot of people typically quit and give up. That's not going to be you, because you're going to understand that it's going to take time. Fire Emblem Engage has about 41 hours in the game. Supposedly it takes about 80 to 90 hours to complete. So translate that into the business world, it'll take years, many of years, in order for you to grow your business. So never forget, it is a journey, it is a marathon. It is never a sprint, and it's never a quick stop or a destination. Enjoy the ride. We're in it for the long haul. All right. So I want you to pay attention to the man that we're going to see on the screen right now, Alan DeBeer. And keep in mind everything that we just learned and explained by a gamer as I go through this story, which should hopefully get a couple laughs out of some people as they see this old picture of me when I was just known as a young man named Tariq Ali. This is before I changed my name, before I grew my hair out a bit. Tariq Ali, the young man in this picture, actually worked for this company that a man named Alan DeBeer created. All right, so Alan DeBeer, and if you're not familiar with him, as of today, right now, he is the CEO of OneTrust. He was the co-founder of a company called AirWatch in 2003 here in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, what AirWatch did back in the day was provide mobile device management solutions. Now, what is mobile device management solutions? Why is it important? I just want you to consider 2003. Or at least let me paint the picture in the time of BlackBerries when they're fascinating all of the business world. It's an easy way for us to email. It's an easy way for us to communicate professionally, us being anyone in the business world during that time. Now, Alan DeBeer, along with John Marshall, who also co-founded AirWatch, they were ahead of the curve a little bit when they were creating this mobile device management solution, because where it was important for cybersecurity, for all those people now managing their business on their mobile devices, it was not as fascinating as it is today. But in 2007, can anyone guess what happened that completely changed the scope of how we view mobile device management? Allow a quick second to think about 2007, and if your guess was LeBron James leading his Cleveland Cavaliers at 22 years old in 2007. No, that's not it, but I'm sure that's what most sports fans probably thought of when they heard 2007, because what else happened in 2007 that was so significant that I need to remember? Well, it's a very easy answer. A man named Steve Jobs in the beginning of 2007 premiered and introduced the iPhone, the world's first iPhone. This was a global phenomenon because this would completely change the world moving forward, especially considering how we did business, considering everything, emails, applications, documents would be able to be embedded in your phone, and you could also enjoy your personal life using that same device. Later on in 2007, it was released to the public and then slowly gained a lot of traction across the world. It didn't really matter about professionally, it didn't matter about what nation. The iPhone really made waves and completely transformed the way that we use any of our mobile devices moving forward. I don't even know if you can call it a phone anymore because it has so many other benefits, and majority of people use their phone application the least out of the iPhone's many different perks and applications. So that was 2007. Steve Jobs created the iPhone, and then later on, Alan DeBeer and the rest of the AirWatch team got Series B funding, so it was about $200 million in order to grow AirWatch. Now, how would your company or any company start to get funding and start to get investors to say, hey, this needs to be bigger and we need to invest in the future? Well, easy. You solve a problem, and like Alan DeBeer and John Marshall, you probably solve that problem before it becomes a global issue. Right? So that's when mobile device management was very significant, because everyone started to get an iPhone. Everyone started to do business on their iPhone. Everyone started to implement all their personal data on their mobile device. Cybersecurity was more prevalent in your desktop hardware, your laptop hardware, but now that mobile device management was extremely important. When you get your Series B funding, you typically start to expand many teams and hire a ton of different people, mostly in sales, mostly in engineering, but of course also in operations. So consider this: when you have to now expand and you get all of that funding, you need to sometimes, for investors, pay that investor back, or the investor will say, hey, I want this percentage in interest, or I want this percentage of your company. So that sales team is very critical. The bigger your sales team, the more support that they're going to have to get. All right, so in 2010 to 2013, when AirWatch got their Series B funding and they needed to grow their company and grow their sales team and grow all of the different products and expand their products with their engineering team, AirWatch just started to make waves and hire many people locally and some nationally as well. Now, when a sales team grows, like I mentioned, the support has to grow along too. So think of the sales team as your superstars, your NBA superstars. They're the players. They're the ones on the front lines. They're the ones really making the waves. But the back end team, your operations people, your support people, they're the ones who are more like the analysts. They're the ones who are more like the recruiters. They're the more outside of the actual recruiters. They're the ones who are on the back end making sure that all of the products management, in terms of pricing, in terms of packaging, in terms of how we close deals, in terms of how we manage those deals. So you have a deal management team. All of those teams, although they're not getting a lot of love and they're not really the ones that are thanked for the most part for all of their hard work, so it's a thankless job, they're extremely significant to keep the business running. So on the front end, the sales team is going out selling this to the world brand new product, even though it's been in production for about 10 years, and they're growing the company's name and they're growing the market and things are going well. But when you get a lot of that funding, remembering you have investors that you need to either pay back, or you have investors to make sure that, hey, my investments are yielding returns. You have to typically go a certain route to ensure the investors or your stakeholders will receive what they ask for. And then that's when in 2014, a company called VMware said, hey, we're going to buy or acquire AirWatch from you, Alan DeBeer. And then thus making the sale for $1.5 billion, making AirWatch a part of VMware's portfolio. All right. So Alan DeBeer created this fantastic machine, and VMware said, hey, I love that. I love mobile device management. We have some things that we're working on our end, so we want to make sure that we take in your mobile device management product and add it to a part of our portfolio. If you're not familiar with VMware, I could be giving them more credit than they possibly deserve, but in my mind, all of the VR gamers that are experiencing virtual reality right now should give a lot of thank yous to VMware, who created virtual machines. VMware virtual machineware. What's a virtual machine? It's a machine inside a machine inside a machine. The whole concept is you don't need a hardware for your virtual machine, and it will take in all of your data, all of your applications. It's kind of like Macheception, machine inception. That would have been a cool name, but VMware is also cool, virtual machineware. But that's the whole concept of VMware. So now, not only are we making these virtual machines with your mobile device management and your security for your email management, everything that AirWatch had under its portfolio, now we can put it under our umbrella and just grow VMware tenfold. Acquisitions or mergers and acquisitions are how a lot of big companies scale to get even bigger, or scale to serve their brand new customer base. When virtual machines are growing and you start to have more customers and you're selling to certain companies, they have other issues that they need to be solved. And if you can't solve those issues, and a competitor can give them virtual machines but also solve other issues, even though their virtual machines might not have been good as VMware's, they're going to really be put in a negative position within the market. So by acquiring by acquiring AirWatch, VMware starts to grow and expand and have a better footprint inside the marketplace. All right, so this is when the young man Tariq Ali comes in, and eventually he starts working at this company, which is now known as VMware AirWatch. I was actually put on the operations team for renewals. Renewals, a lot of these companies sell renewal contracts, so 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts for their products, and the renewals come up every time their term ends. It could even be monthly or quarterly. It all depends on the deal with the business. And it was my job as a business analyst to make sure that these companies are renewing with the updated pricing and packaging. If they had a couple of products, I would make some suggestions to the sales team or the renewals team in order to ensure them a better upgrade, or if they were trying to downgrade, it was my job to run the data, crunch the numbers pretty much. Whenever you're working in a startup, just add or multiply your days times 7. All I thought, all I ate, all I breathed was AirWatch for a long, significant portion of my career in tech when I was working for VMware AirWatch. Because the business grows so fast, especially when you're having a merger and acquisition, and we're now acquiring you and merging you into our ecosystem, we now have to figure out how do all of our sales data, how does all of our processes merge into this giant machine, which already had a much larger portfolio, a much larger customer base. The nights are long, the days are longer, it almost feels. So, I got to see a lot when I was starting off, and eventually I started to grow within this merger and acquisition team, because VMware did not only purchase VMware AirWatch, they purchased a ton of different mergers and acquisitions. There were products at the time called green, orange, blue, and yellow management suite, which the higher the color, that sounds odd, but for in our minds as AirWatch employees, we called it Gobi. The higher the color, or the further along the color system you go in, the more of the management solutions that you're provided. Since that was an AirWatch mentality or an AirWatch product, VMware had to now reshape those products into the product that we know today as VMware Workspace ONE. Horizon, vSphere were pretty much VMware products already, but they had to now change Gobi products into a VMware product, thus creating the product called Workspace ONE. All right. Everything was going great. We were expanding, we were integrating everything into VMware's products. Life was great, sort of say. We were making a lot of headways, but 2020 happened. COVID happened, and the tech bubble was just starting to just grow and grow and grow. The tech bubble's getting huge because now everyone's inside, and virtual machines and mobile device management, cybersecurity, everything that VMware was offering was very significant for the success of corporations across the world. But the rest of the world that was outside of the tech industry was suffering significantly. Not being able to be in person, not being able to travel into the office or into any commercial businesses or even residential areas shutting down. So many negative impacts happened across the board for COVID that eventually, when the tech bubble started to slow down, or in 2022 the tech bubble eventually started to pop because it was overinflated with the need of tech because the rest of these businesses were suffering. And then in 2022, everyone's able to get back, and then the tech bubble goes down, and then it starts to burst. And a ton of people were getting laid off, and a ton of people were losing their jobs. It almost hurts your soul every time you log on LinkedIn and you were working in tech, because you were wondering, who's next? Obviously, everyone thought it was going to be them if you're working in tech, and a lot of people did get laid off. Enter Broadcom, that purchased AirWatch, which was, remember, under VMware's umbrella. AirWatch and every other product that VMware owned, because Broadcom purchased VMware as a whole for one of the largest tech deals in history. Now, this was one of the most interesting stories. At this point, I had transitioned from the Workspace ONE team into the Carbon Black team, which was a cybersecurity team. And I was still working in mergers and acquisitions, but I transitioned into the marketing side of things outside of the operations side of things. So I was able to travel a bit, get outside the house, go meet some people. And I never forget when this news came across the timeline for many people, just the amount of noise that I had to hear in public, because I would travel and go to events in person from other competitors. Other competitors will always talk about, man, I'm so happy to be at a Broadcom event, or I'm so happy to be at a Broadcom party, just teasing us, tongue in cheek a little bit, because there was no more VMware. So we have all of this VMware gear, talking about all of this VMware products, and then just like that, the message has to shift. So notice what happened here. You have AirWatch, you have VMware, you have Broadcom. Just like that. AirWatch, VMware, Broadcom. So majority of someone's life, such as mine, when I only know AirWatch, and now I only know VMware, and now I only know Broadcom, the shift just has to change dramatically, because for a lot of businesses, once they scale, they have to remain going in the upward trajectory, and acquisitions is how many of these companies tend to strive. Now, the deal closed for VMware, and Broadcom. So the Broadcom acquisition of VMware, the deal closed for this around 2022. Now, 2020 is when COVID started. There's been conversations for about 2 years in order for that company to be sold to Broadcom. One thing I did not mention was that Dell owned VMware prior to AirWatch being bought out or bought into VMware. And then Dell eventually started to sell their majority of ownership, and then that's when Broadcom came into play. There was a ton of panic internally because, like I mentioned, think about me, but many of other people just like me that only knew, breathed, and ate AirWatch. It went from Gobi to Workspace ONE to EUC, end user computing. And now I work for Broadcom, and I'm just trying to figure out what is Broadcom going to do with all of these products that we worked our entire lives for. At this point, Alan DeBeer has built OneTrust, and OneTrust is being a successful company. We've seen many different CEOs now in a short period of time, from Patrick Gelsinger all the way now to the newest CEO, who's the current CEO of Broadcom. And the leadership is typically the same, but the people are just going in and out. Like, you don't know who you're going to work with. It was just a lot of change. Fast forward 2 years later, after the purchase of VMware into Broadcom, this company, KRR, purchased the AirWatch portion from Broadcom, creating this new company called Omnissa. So if you see this company on LinkedIn with 75,000 followers and thousands of employees with CEOs and staffs everywhere, and you're just wondering, how on earth did this brand new company come out of nowhere with all of these people and a strong foothold in the market? It's all thanks to all of the hard work that Mr. DeBeer started in 2003, and then this long journey going from AirWatch to Omnissa. Okay, so I mentioned a lot. I cut out some good things, most of the good things. I wanted to just point this out, how you start this company and then you create a place in the market. After you created that place in the market, meaning you created your market position and you created that product, you created that solution, eventually you have to now expand and grow. At a certain point, you have, for a lot of people, significant growth once they receive funding or once their market position has really solidified. To continue that expansion, some companies will sell to another company, and thus you have the mergers and acquisitions that most corporations do to continue to remain successful. And then another acquisition to remain successful. Although this was tough for a lot of people, this helped a lot of employees keep their jobs during one of the toughest times in recent history for the economy. So this was acquired, VMware was acquired in 2020, saving a lot of people from getting laid off. Not everyone, but it did significantly help. And then to make sure that the vision of Alan DeBeer continued, instead of a merger and acquisition, Omnissa was acquired. The VMware AirWatch portfolio was acquired and pulled out into its own company, Omnissa. Right. So think about all this long journey from 2003 to 2024, and how many years it takes, and different practices it takes, and different leaders and resources and acquisitions and all of the different political things that you're not seeing behind the scenes, in order for a business to scale and grow to a certain point. I am using this story just to talk about the comparisons between Fire Emblem Engage and AirWatch, which I know is an interesting combination, an interesting story or an interesting comparison to try to bring this story all in one place so we can talk about strategic business practices. But you have to think about the growth of your startup and then the market position. For AirWatch, and I'll move my face for a bit. I probably should have did that for a couple other slides, but I'll move my face so you can see. But for AirWatch, you have that initial establishment. you begin the company, you solve a solution. What they did was they solved mobile device management, and then they created a position in the market, a niche position in the market within the tech industry. If you look at Fire Emblem Engage, what they did was something very similar. So when you start in Fire Emblem Engage, you have a wait. I don't want to show you that again. Let's put my cam back up. When you start in Fire Emblem Engage, you have a base called the Somnium. Inside the Somnium, there's really nothing when you initially start the game. But you do have that vision, or you do have your position in the market, and you are uniquely positioned to be niche within the kingdom. Same thing with Samyo. No one's there, but they now know your position within that market. And then eventually, AirWatch begins to grow so big, and they're solving so many problems that they get their Series B funding. Right? So in Fire Emblem Engage and the Somnium, what's happening is people are starting to put funding in from other kingdoms, are starting to put funding in to make sure that the Somnium, or the home base of the players, has different resources and different advantages that it didn't have originally in order to grow its market position. Right? So that in AirWatch, it expands their employees and their clientele as well. And then in the Somnium, what all that funding and resources are doing is expanding the army, it's expanding the military, it's expanding their position for their quote-unquote clientele, who are the people of the world, to make sure that they're protecting them. All right, so I don't know why I was playing Fire Emblem Engage, and I just saw the two, and I obviously have a special place in my heart, AirWatch does, so I wanted to just talk about the comparisons, but think about your company. Are you starting off or creating your startup right now to be niche within this industry? Or is it just like every other company? Right? Because when you solve that problem and you create a niche solution, other people can invest within that solution. They can invest within you because they believe that you are providing what they need. And in that way, they can go into the expansion portion of your early growth. All right. If you try to do it alone, which a lot of companies can, attempt to, and some can, it doesn't always yield results. And sometimes you need that additional funding, or you need that experience from others in order to grow your business. Thus, creating strategic alliances and acquisitions. For VMware, they acquired AirWatch, right? So that was a strategic alliance for them. They already had a huge portfolio. They already solved a ton of different problems. Now with AirWatch, and let me remove my face again so we can see all of the slides. Now with AirWatch, we can expand our portfolio to further provide solutions for our customers. And because we are already a certain brand, let's now replace the Gobi products, like I mentioned before, or AirWatch products, and rebrand them into Workspace ONE, so that it matches our brand, and now we can continue to let our customers know we have the solutions that you're looking for. In Fire Emblem Engage, anyone that joins the team, they're royalty of their own kingdoms, or they're high-ranking army members of their own kingdoms. But once they join the team in the Somnium, which is the home base for the main character in Fire Emblem Engage, no one's thinking about their prior alliances or their prior allegiances. They're thinking now, okay, you are now a partner of, as the main character is called, the Divine Dragon. So you are now a part of the Somnium. You are now a part of their allegiance. So that actually helps the Somnium strengthen and embolden their stance that they are the rightful protectors of their kingdom. All right, and I could be butchering this game, so forgive me if there's like any any Fire Emblem super fans out there, and you're probably just thinking, what on earth? That's not exactly how it is. It's the concept that I'm trying to make stick. If you are a business, sometimes you have to align with other businesses that share your vision to create a strategic partnership. If you can create that strategic partnership, it can strengthen and embolden your stance and position within the market. Or if you feel like you have the solution, but you cannot provide the necessary resources to expand within the market, or to expand the team, or to give your employees more money, then sometimes acquisitions are the answer. It's all about something that you have to decide, but it's all about something that isn't clear. You have to come to that decision based off many councils, based off different meetings, but you have to typically have a partnership that aligns with your vision. And thus it's out of your hair at that point once you are acquired. Sometimes you don't really have any say of the vision of the company after that company has been acquired. But sometimes that company that acquired your business can no longer sustain that growth, and what they will do is further expand or have strategic realignment, such as the Broadcom acquisition of VMware. Let's say you did not, or you're not even interested in the merger and acquisition, but you did create some strategic partnerships. You have to continue to further expand the business and continue to realign your strategy based off of the needs of the customers and the market. In Fire Emblem Three Houses, you have additional, let's say, leadership and additional experiences and additional expertise as you grow and expand. So you're now taking in that console and you're starting to expand even more, and your strategies are starting to grow better. Your weapons, your armor, your resources, everything is starting to grow a little bit, and you're continuing to further that expansion as you go alongside the game. It's no different than what happens in business, right? Just because you grew a little bit doesn't mean you should not continue to think about the further or the growth or the further expansion that your company has the potential to receive. And then once you feel like you're at a good place, and it doesn't have to be acquisitions, it doesn't have to be through partnerships. Those are great strategies, but not necessarily the only answer for everyone. Sometimes you have to rebrand. Pitch, Play, Code, we did it. We used to be called Cayne Creative. Eventually we rebranded. We had to have that strategic realignment. We have to continuously improve and adapt our brand to meet the market and to meet the industry. Omnissa is currently on that adaptation as they've now branched off and became their own company and with their own portfolio, which you can now see on Omnissa. You'll see they'll sell Workspace ONE and Horizon. And that's the same thing that happens when you try to be successful in Fire Emblem Engage. You have to adapt. The same strategy that works in the beginning does not always work in the end. That's the case, and that's the truth. You have to continuously improve, continuously adapt. That is the whole concept of business transformation. You have to position yourself within the market. See how are your customers adjusting to you, and check out their feedback. Always take their feedback in. And once you understand their feedback, adjust your business goals to make sure they're aligning with your customers' needs in order to determine if you need to have a strategic partnership, or consider an investor coming in and providing funding, or consider if you need to be acquired by a much larger company. All of these things will be answered to you in due time. But if we're talking about a video game, something that you can just adjust to in a couple of hours, translating that into the business world, that's something that could take years in order for you to determine. That is all I have right now. I know I was going to do